So made a really sad error last night that cost not so much mileage as time. I was about 19 miles out, saw some nice campsites, and wanted to push on a little bit, just to get past 20. I thought the snow would continue to improve. It didn't. We got some more bare conditions rather than snowier conditions. The good news is I'm at Farewell Lake, so I know where I am. I can't be too far from the trail, but I still am pretty much stuck with backtracking until I find what I know is the trail. I don't think it'll be that far. The problem is that I didn't really get to sleep until about 3:30 last night or this morning. I was setting up camp starting around 1 in the morning. So everybody was... It wasn't so much that we had a really late start. We started at almost 4. So I don't think it was more than 8 or 9 hours camp to camp. Dogs are doing very well. We made it through some pretty grim parts that were just bare ground. That was really hard. And we're starting, it's much more consistent even, certainly than that was. And that's what I was told to expect. That somewhere around 20 miles out, around Farewell, things would improve quite a bit. There's a fair amount of snow here.
Well, there is a sight for sore eyes. That's the Iditarod Trail. We're about 45 minutes out of camp.
It's easy to see how I missed that in the middle of the night. I have to cross, trail's on the opposite side.
There is no crossing right here. They probably had one. It's out. It goes to show you the notion of stopping and backtracking was the right thing, and maybe you should have done it sooner, but, you know, here we are.
I first thought about ski joining the Iditarod Trail during the spring of 2013. I tried in 2014, but a sick dog and lack of snow, if Shoshone had been healthy I would have continued and I would have been miserable, had me pull out and roam. Most of the trail was a lot better this year, but the leg between Roan and Farewell Lake was almost the same as it had been in 2014. The good parts were iced over grass, the bad parts were just bare ground. Pulling my polk, about 110 pounds, up steep slopes over bare ground, had my dogs wondering who they had for a musher. Always knew Dad was nuts, but this is even worse than I thought. A few times they totally gave up, and it was me alone pulling the polk. I started on February 27th, the day before the Iditarod Trail Invitational began, and a little more than a week before the Iditarod itself started. The first 3 days, we moved at speeds I'd never dared dream about.
This is fun. I'm having a great time now. Snow is easy. Dogs are pulling well.
For me, what makes the Iditarod Trail special is it passes through 5 of Alaska's ecosystems. It starts in the Maritime, crosses the Alaska Range, runs through the interior, crosses the coastal range, and then runs along the subarctic coast. It's also hard, it's not just long. There are always bare parts, sections where there is no snow. The section between Roan and Farewell Lake is notorious for this. Others who had ski joined the trail said they ran or walked the bare parts. I designed my sled so it was rideable. I figured I'd ride it through hard technical sections like the Happy River Steps, as well as over any bare ground. I'd ski as much as I could and track that mileage daily. I wasn't purely ski joring, I was ski jor sledding.
Today should be a pretty easy day, physically, mentally, everything. We do have the Happy River Steps in front of us, but I'll be on the sled the whole way, which is easier on everybody. It's actually easy running that way.
Okay, so we're sledding now into the Alaska Range. We're actually kind of in the Alaska Range. It is a picture perfect day. Any Iditarod aficionado is going to recognize this. We're in Happy River. I just made it through the steps. This is actually the first time. All 3 times have been pretty easy. The last 2 times though, I psyched myself out. This time I didn't. I didn't psych myself out and kept myself focused, and I actually made it through without a fall. Both times I made it with just one fall, and I shouldn't have. First time it was just misjudging that first turn. Second time was just letting up on my concentration because I made the first turn. Now I actually did it the whole way, and arguably one of the harder times because the sled's a little squirrely. But hey, we're here. I am a big relief. There's lots of good snow. That's a good thing.
What made the trip challenging was I was by myself and I only had 4 dogs. By comparison, Iditarod teams have 16 dogs. Hills, Bear Ground, and Moguls are all much harder on a small team than a large team. What was easier for my dogs and me was we weren't racing. With this, I never expected my dogs to be very fast, and we had a lot of time in camp to rest.
We're on snow, which is nice. I'm melting snow. Here's the tent. Me outside for a second. Yeah, almost done. There are the dogs. Hi, dogs. Guys, good? Oh yeah, we're very good, Dad. Where's our food? I'm working on it.
Sun's out, which is great. I'm letting it dry everything off. We had rain last night, and then it froze. Warm front, cold front moved through actually pretty quickly. A little bit of wind with it, so I guess a light storm. Everybody's doing well. Sun is up, and that's great. I actually hadn't realized that I was going to get very close to first sun in this campsite, and I am, which is wonderful. Usually I look for that, but last night I was just looking for a nice place to set up the tent and the dogs, and I got that too. That's still more important than first sun. What else can I say? Life's going pretty good. I'm relaxing right now. It's about 9:30. Little later than a lot of people, but hey, I'm a light guy.
Look at these guys. Those are happy, comfortable dogs. Snow dogs on snow, lying down, having done actually a fair amount of work so far. And we've got a whole bunch ahead of us. Here's panning around the campsite. Tent. Embarrassingly disorganized inside. Everything else is... One nice thing is I did a nice job of stowing everything last night. Trail. This is the Iditarod Trail. Woohoo! Even as late as I am, it looks like there's, barring any real big problems, it should be a relatively straightforward run into Winter Lake Lodge this evening. And that's about it.
The third day, running from a camp just past Squetna to Finger Lake, was 40 miles and had our first real climbs. It was hard but not brutal. The dogs did great, kicking it up to 8 miles an hour as we crossed Finger Lake. The next day, running from Finger Lake to Puntilla Lake and running past Lodge started easily. I did make it through the Happy River steps without a fall. However, shortly after that, we started running into huge moguls, many of the undulations topping 4 feet, left in the trail by snowmobiles.
We've been beaten up by moguls left and right, but at least this is a little bit of a reward. We're clearly in the Alaska Range. Dogs are moving well here. It seemed like the moguls would never let up, and we'll get back to them, I'm sure. But at this point, everybody's happy to be done with them, at least for a short period.
With the climb over Rainy Pass itself, the run between Rainy Pass Lodge and Roan was hard but beautiful.
Getting ready to leave. This is Rainy Pass Lodge, probably one of the prettier spots that I've seen of the Iditarod Trail. Made it in last night after an absolutely brutal run. Hopefully everything says that this should be, while longer, a much cleaner, easier run, because we won't have the moguls beating us up. This is sort of a very old snowmobile trail. This is the real trail. This is where Lamia wanted to take us. This is where we should go.
The Dalzell Gorge starts shortly after the pass. 2 years ago it had been ice and bare ground. This year it had thick snow and great grooming. With this it was just plain fun. The dogs and I were smiling as we pulled into Roan. The next day, our sixth on the trail, was the leg between Roan and Farewell Lake. With the bare ground, it was far and away our hardest. The 7th day we made it to the Bear Creek cabin. Better snow made it easier than the day before, but there were still climbs over bare ground with a loaded pulk. Bear sections did stop about 10 miles before we turned off of the main trail to the Bear Creek cabin. There were still spots with no snow, but I could usually balance one of the sled runners on a good track. The improved conditions continued on the leg between the Bear Creek cabin and Nikolai. I started ski joring about 5 miles from the cabin. The better snow did make the dogs pulling easier. However, I had to dodge bare spots, trenches, and moguls all while on skis. I was wasted as we pulled into Nikolai that evening. The decision to rest there for a day was a no-brainer. With that, I fully recovered. So did the dogs.
Here we are on the Kuskokwim, about almost 10 miles outside of Nikolai. Hike. Dogs are moving well. They're hopefully start realizing that they're in pretty good shape now. And this is easy. This is as easy as the first day. And they are in much better shape. They weren't in bad shape when they started, but I'm happy. What I didn't realize is just how much everybody needed the break in Nikolai, at least coming into it. I guess I subconsciously knew it, but I think it's going to work out very well. And I'm delighted with how today's going.
The first night after Nikolai, I camped on a peninsula about halfway to Takotna. Everything was looking good. The dogs had actually sped up the last few miles. It was the first night during which I had no cramping. I'd done a good job of conditioning my dogs, but only a marginal job of conditioning myself. The next day started as well as the day before it ended. It looked like everything was going to fall into place.
Well, here I am. I'm in Takotna. Here's my mess. Most of it actually is, as I've said previously, it's a lot more organized than it appears. Got in here a lot later last night than I wanted to. The run was harder than I thought it would be, unfortunately for me, but that's the way life goes. That was my misjudgment. I thought that it was going to be mostly along the river. It was until McGrath, but very quickly after McGrath, it got a lot rougher. Not as rough as we've seen by any stretch, but it was enough that the dogs started thinking about their past, their recent past. So that was a little disappointing. I guess that's about it. Well, here I am in camp. It was a shorter day than I had planned for yesterday, but it was a perfect camp. We made it a little bit past Ophir. We're about 3 miles past Ophir and found a perfect campsite. This is ending up being a really good decision, I think. You know, we'll find out for sure. We've had lots of teams pass us. I did expect that to happen. I actually kind of expected a couple teams pass before I even got camped, but that's part of what made this a great campsite is I'm not in anybody's way. It was all packed down. What else? It also means the trail is going to be very fast, and of course, we got rid of about 7 or 8 pounds of stuff because it's about 6 pounds a day of food for the dogs, and probably pound a day, pound and a half to 2 pounds between fuel and food for all of us. The food for me and the fuel for the dogs and me. So this is looking so far like it's a really good decision. Certainly the rationale is spot on. One other thing that happened yesterday that was really great in many ways was I did the climb out of Takotna, which is a pretty hefty climb. It's about 500-600 feet vertical, not particularly steep, and was on the sled at that point. And then after a little bit of time, maybe another 5 miles, between 10 and 11 miles out of town, I looked around and said, yeah, this is good terrain for waxable skis. I put the skis on and actually for the first time had a good time ski touring because it was just real skiing. I've been on ice or thin snow or ruts or moguls. There was some moguling, but not a lot. It was just kind of fun. The snow was also soft and very pliable, and so I'm hoping for the same thing today. Well, as good as yesterday was, today is kind of miserable. It started very quickly. I hit some ice overflow there where the ice was thin and actually fell in. Boots got soaked. Everything else is pretty good. It's warm, so I'm not too worried about anything. There's certainly no safety issue, and of course I have the other pair of boots, which I now have on. I've hit my last mogul for at least today, and I don't know what I'm going to do in terms of moguls, but I have a fair shot that I could be able to do this in my Neos and Baffins. They've worked well so far, and I can handle the moguls. I haven't found a way to do the moguls with the skiing, not without a lot of. I just don't know. Hey, right. There are the dogs resting nicely. I should say it is beautiful here. We're in hills. And they like the sun too.
We spent that night at the Carlson Crossing cabin. At that time, I hoped that by only sledding, I could keep the running smooth and my team would start to speed up. Instead, each day was slower than the day before. Beyond that, there was no day after leaving Takotna that was as fast as our 8th day, the day before we took our long break. Given how well the dogs had run, even after the leg between Roan and Farewell Lake, as well as how easy the trail was between Takotna and Ruby, I knew the issues were psychological, not physical. The first 3 days, I thought that something I had done had the dogs running slow and that it could reverse itself. In time, I realized that that wasn't the case. We spent the next night camped a little south of Cripple.
Here's camp. We're about 15 miles south of Cripple. We did make the mileage we needed to do yesterday. Not by a lot, but my goal was 29 miles and 9 hours is a minimum. We have to be doing those kinds of numbers. 29 will get us into Ruby just at the end of our supplies. It's pushing things. I would rather have some margin, but everything said the weather would be good, which it is, obviously. Nice to see the sun. Isn't it, guys? Well, yes, it is.
We made it through Cripple the next day. There, I met Jim Galley, a friend and a race judge. He offered me dog food and I took about 15 pounds. 6 miles farther down the trail, I set up camp. Just as I was turning in, Kristen Bacon ran into my tent, spinning it all the way around and dropping it on me.
Here's the pass the mushers are going to have to take. Understand that at night everybody's wearing a headlamp that would see this a mile off. Not to mention the fact that the dogs are going to avoid the tent. So they're going to inevitably pull everything off to the left. There's really no place to go on the right. I think she could have easily avoided it. Every musher since then has. What's appalling, really appalling, is she didn't stop to see if I was okay. You know, she just went on as soon as she could. And that so violates my notion of the Code of the North. Something that Iditarod usually has been proud of. The tent had lost a pole. I had to replace that last night. My mental acuity can't be too bad because I was able to do that and actually have the whole camp set back up in an hour. The Hillbrook tents. Yeah, Bo. Hey, Bo, how you doing? They come with an extra pole section inside of the pole bag, which I was really happy about because it meant I have a lot of redundancy, so that made sense to me. It also has a repair kit, so even without that, there's 2 possibilities. But this meant I have something that's absolutely 100%. I'll buy a new pole section when I get back home. That's about it, and I don't know, maybe sew up the part of the pole bag that has the who's it in it? That had that pole section in it.
Here we are. Dogs are pulling. This should be a really easy pull for them. And they're just hike! And they're just hesitating. They're not having any fun. It's uphill, but it's smooth and it's a real gradual incline. The snow's actually pretty good. The sled should be sliding well. They are looking for any excuse to stop. And they're just not that tired. We're 10 miles into today's run. I've got today, tomorrow and the next day, and if I can't get them to have some fun with this, then I'll pull out.
While in Cripple, I told Jim Galley about what was going on with my team. I said that if I couldn't get them to start having fun, I'd pull out in Ruby. Having heard my story and seen my dogs, he said that the problem was they were afraid that this would never end. That got me thinking. What I realized only after talking to Jim was that I had had 3 of my 4 dogs for less than a year. With this, the trust they had built up in me wasn't enough to get us through a trip as long as I had planned. The good news was that, in spite of the many things that I had screwed up, nothing I had done had lost my dog's trust in me. The bad news was that, short of spending more seasons with me, there was nothing I could have done to build that trust up to the level necessary for even a few weeks on the trail. And with that, they were no longer having any fun.
Well, here I am in the last camp. It should be a pretty easy run. I wish I could just tell the dogs that and get them to understand. We're about 18 or 19 miles, 18 and a half outside of Ruby. And we're on road. And I think it's almost entirely downhill, so it doesn't get much easier than this. The road by itself just never going to have the kind of steep grades or it is why I could get them up to the pass is we were on road. It's the Poor Man Ruby Road. We've been on that for a fair number of miles now. It's made life very, very easy. I can run on it and so easily. And so everything is looking very optimistic for a relatively short, easy run today. It's strange being in the last camp and knowing that it is. Obviously, I have to understand what's going on with the dogs a little bit better in terms of their attitudes. Physically, I think I got everything right. I think it just really is what Jim Galley said, that they're looking for an end of the line, and there isn't any. And so they're stressed out like crazy, and not pulling, and not real happy with me, which is really the bottom line. It's what's made this decision to pull out Ruby so easy is I'm not running with dogs that are unhappy. They may not be happy every instant. I'm not happy under every instant, but in general, they should be enjoying this. And this has become kind of miserable for them. And they are my family. And I guess that's about it.